Welcome to the Retirement Planning Show, your source for financial strategies to help you retire with confidence. Featuring Chip Coughlin of Retirement Income Analysts in Syracuse, New York. Chip is a registered representative, and securities are offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratus Wealth Partners, Ltd. Retirement Income Analysts and Stratus Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. And now, here are your co-hosts, Matt Halloran and Chip Coughlin.
I am here with Chip Coughlin, and today we're talking about the top 5 questions clients have been asking Chip now while he's meeting with them. So, Chip, I know that there's been a lot of questions, and this is a very timely but also timeless subject, because the questions, as you have listed here, are somewhat timeless questions. So, to start this off, do you hear basically the same questions no matter what's going on with the economy, political system, and all of that?
I do hear a lot of the same questions, and I think it's because the clients feel like they're in the boat rowing it just by themselves, and they're wondering universally, am I going to be okay? And they all have goals and dreams and aspirations, but they always want to know, am I going to be okay? And then I have to say, let's break that down. Mm-hmm. What are you referring to? What does okay mean to you?
Okay. So what is the number one question that you've been hearing from your clients?
Clients will ask me this. They'll say, based on my situation as it stands right now, can I retire or can I retire early?
Well, that's a tough question. I mean, that could be horrifically disappointing to some people. I mean, how do you quell that reality with keeping people's, I don't know, not necessarily hopes up, but you know what I mean?
Well, we have to look at their situation. Every situation's different. We have to look at their situation and run some projections. Can I retire now? Well, let's see what you've got as far as your investments, your retirement plan, what Social Security would provide to you, and see what type of an income we can generate from those assets. And, you know, if the amount of income is okay, and we look at your budget and your net worth, maybe we can say yes to that. It's a great day when I can tell a client, hey, you've got the assets that will generate this amount of income together with Social Security, looking at your monthly budget, you can step out now. And how does that feel? And they're elated. I'm giving them permission to retire. Some clients ask, can I retire early? And I'll say it's the same thing. We have to run a projection. We've got to look at your sources of income. We want to look at your debt, your net worth statement, and really make a decision. Can you get out early? Do you have the assets that will carry you to your life expectancy? And sometimes that's a tough one. I've had to tell clients they got to work a little longer. Usually we ask them when they're within that 5-year window, when they're getting ready to retire. If they've got 5 years to go, let's start making a plan. Let's start shortening up the risk horizon so that we don't have a sequence of bad returns that could spoil their plan. So it's a tough question, and the clients want to know. And it's not a quick answer. It takes a little bit of analysis.
So after the analysis, when you're talking to them about being able to retire, what do you tell them that because I'm assuming, Chip, some people feel rather powerless. How do you empower them by helping them make decisions so that they can get closer to being on track if they're just kind of on the edge of being able to retire?
Well, we have to look at their budget first, and we have to build an income for them from all their investments, including Social Security. Then look at the budget and see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, if we have to take some corrective action, how much time will it take with corrective action to get them on the right road to be able to say, hey, I'm going to be able to retire in 24 months or 36 months or something like that. But it starts with looking at their current assets. How are those current assets invested? We look at their monthly budget or a cash flow analysis, and we determine, do they have it? Because let's face it, I think there's 2 big questions clients have to answer. Number one, financially, am I ready to retire? Do I have the assets in place to generate the income necessary to live the standard of living I want to live? And number 2, am I emotionally ready? And the emotional part is really tough. Do I have a social circle? Do I have a reason to get up every day? We want you to be an active and engaged retiree with something to do, because sitting on the couch just doesn't cut it anymore, and that doesn't lead to a fulfilling retirement. So they have to answer yes to both of those questions. Financially, I've got the asset base, the income, and so on, and I'm ready. And emotionally, I've got plans for the future. I'm going to be an active and engaged retiree.
Chip, I've heard statistics that if you do not have something to retire to, you will retire or you will die 10 to 15 years earlier than if you have something to retire to. Is that accurate in any way, shape, or form?
It's very true. Think about this. You're at work for 40 years, and then the next day you have nothing to do. You don't have a hobby. You don't have any friends because you've worked so hard. You never had time to make a lot of friends. And what do? You sit on the couch and you watch TV. And that's a great way to put yourself in the ground because you have to stay active mentally and physically to have a good retirement.
Wonderful. So what's the second big thing that you've heard from clients just about really what you do as a financial services professional?
Well, many of our clients want to know that they have kids that are about to go to college or within the next 10 years. Do I save for college or do I save for retirement first? What do I do? And that's a tough one because many people put off saving for college because it's 18 years off once they have a child, but it's something you should start right at the beginning. But if they haven't, then they've got to make up some ground. But you don't want to save for college at the expense of shortchanging your retirement. So the first thing I ask is, can you do both? Can you save for college and can you save for retirement? If they can't do that, could you do some of each? And we'd weight that towards the retirement because the simple fact is you can borrow money for your child to go to college, but it's very difficult to borrow money for retirement. Mm-hmm. So you have to build up the retirement asset. And so we want them to put a larger percentage into the retirement bucket and less going into the college bucket so that the child will get to college. Perhaps they'll have to take out some loans. Perhaps the parents will have to take out a little bit of a loan. There's grant money, there's financial aid and things like that, but we have to save for retirement or it's going to prolong their working years and they're not going to be able to retire at a reasonable age.
An advisor I was talking to very recently said that the last thing that you want to do is to pay for your kids to go to college, and then you have to move in with them after they graduate.
Well, that's so true. We in my family, we call it economic outpatient care. And
okay.
You have to have that conversation with your kids to say, gee whiz, when you get out of college, you got to be on your own. I can't support you. You have to have a good college experience to give you the job that can support you the way you want to live, not the way we live now. And I can tell you with my kids, it's worked. They're on their own. They're independent. They pay their own expenses. And it's liberating because you've done your homework well with your kids.
Well, it's nice to hear that, and I want everybody to make sure that they focus on that. So this isn't just pie in the sky stuff with you or an academic perspective. This is Chip Coughlin did this actually for his own family, and because you made sure that all of your ducks were in a row.
Well, I still talk to I have 3 older daughters. I still talk with my daughters 4 times a year about their financial situation. Mm-hmm. And we have a financial meeting. We sit in the dining room. I look at their savings account. I look at their 401k or 403b. I ask them to make a monthly budget, and update it as we go along. And I also ask for a projection. What do they want to do? What's coming in the next 12 months that we can plan for? And it's just amazing, the conversation, because they're building up their 401ks or 403bs. They have no credit card debt. They're scared to death of credit cards. I succeeded there. And when they get raises, they don't increase their standard of living. They increase the deposit into their retirement plan. So three daughters, 26, 28, and 31, and they're doing exceptionally well funding their retirement plans right now.
Your advice of when you get a raise, not to raise your standard of living, raise the amount that you're saving. I really wish somebody would have told me that when I was in my 20s and early 30s, because, I personally have made the mistake and know a lot of other people who have too. Now, what's the third big thing here? Because this has to do with the economy, and that's something that's massively in flux, isn't it?
Well, it surely is. If you look at what's going on in the investment markets, just in the last month, prior to the election and right after the election, it's been pretty dramatic. So clients are asking, based on the economy, how should I be invested now? And how should I be invested for the future? And I'll tell you, there is no blanket recommendation. It's never a one size fits all. So we have to ask each client, consider what is your time horizon? How long from now until you want to retire? Where is the market now? What are your financial goals? How much risk do you want to take? What would bother you? And I ask my clients dead on, what would bother you more? Missing out on a 10% gain or losing 10%? And it's 100%, they all say, I don't want to lose 10%. So we have to keep that in mind in terms of how they should be invested. But it's, as I said earlier, there's not a blanket recommendation for everybody. In my world, it's a specific recommendation based on circumstance, based on time horizon, based on how much risk they want to take. It's not a one size fits all. And I can't stress that any greater, because clients come to me and they show me their portfolios, and I go through a series of questions trying to find out where they want to be, where they are now, what their attitudes of risk are. And inevitably, I had a client last week, a successful physician, wants to retire in 16 months. He's dead set on retiring in 16 months. And when we analyzed his portfolio, he was 95% equities, 5% fixed income.
Wow.
And he's really close to retirement, so he's taking a lot of risk. So I tried to point out to him that might not be prudent risk with 16 months to go. Because, as I said a minute ago, you don't want to take unnecessary risk in the years leading up to retirement.
Future is the really big thing, though, right? So, you're not a soothsayer, you're not a person with ESP. How do you help them understand that decision on where you are allocating their resources and how that's going to impact them? And how do you show how that potentially can impact them in the future?
Well, we run a projection, and the projection would show a certain return assumption, and it's very conservative, because if we can meet their income objectives with a conservative assumption, we're going to be okay. If we get better returns than the conservative assumption, then they'll have more money to live on. But if we can achieve all the retirement goals, their income goals, and so on, with a conservative assumption, I think we're going to be in the driver's seat.
Gotcha.
And the client really has some planning potential there that will help them, make the right decision. But again, if you are trying to squeeze a very high rate of return out of any investment to achieve a retirement goal, you're taking way too much risk.
Okay. So you keep using the word risk, right? So help me with that. And how do you ascertain what risk is and how much risk, besides the question you asked, the 10% gain or 10% loss, I don't think the general public truly understands what you do when it comes to risk and their appetite for risk and their ability to absorb risk. Help me with that a little bit.
Well, every goal a client has typically has a timeline associated with it. And the time horizon or the timeline is so very important, because if you look at market cycles, you can see that when you have 5 years or less to go, you really don't want to take a lot of risk. If your goal is to be achieved within 5 years, you have to reduce the risk in there, because if the market goes one way, typically in 5 years, it's not going to have a lot of time to correct. And the closer you get to your goal, the variance in return can be dramatic, and that could really ruin your chances of achieving a goal. So risk is measured in many ways. Time mitigates risk. So the time horizon is one very important aspect that we look at in the client's portfolio to see if the risk is correct for what they're doing.
Gotcha. Beautiful, beautiful. So question number 4 seems to me, because I have the questions in front of me, which is, how can I feel better about my financial situation? That's a really deep philosophical question. How do you address that with clients, Chip?
Well, I want them to know where they are, okay? And I don't want them wondering, am I okay or am I not okay? So I stressed that they need to do a net worth statement so they know exactly where they are today. I want to look at their net worth. I want to look at where they are financially now, How are they saving? How are they preparing for retirement? And once we get the budget, once we get the net worth statement, then they can make a decision whether they want to be an active participant in planning for the retirement or if they're just going to let it happen. Most of my clients want to be an active participant. And what they would do then is they would look at if they have to achieve a goal and they need to really get going on it, they're going to look at their monthly budget and they're going to positively or proactively eliminate unnecessary expenses. I'm going to ask them, based on their monthly budget, to live within their means. We say allocate your resources correctly. And what that means is, how much you should be saving and things like that. And then I want to have the discussion with them about needs versus wants. Okay? I need food on my table, but I'd like a Ferrari in the driveway. So food is a necessary component of everyone's life, as is other financial affairs. But wanting a Ferrari in the driveway, that's pie in the sky. So, and that's a little extreme example, but they need to make a decision, a value decision on what's important to them and what will help them achieve their goal. And just like all of our clients have goals, they had goals to get a good education in high school, to get into a good college, to get a good education in college, to get to a good graduate school or a medical school. They want to do well in medical school to get into a good residency and fellowship. And they want to finish up their fellowship strong so that they can go and join a practice, either privately or in an academic setting. So they had a lot of educational goals, but they have to have some financial goals as well. And I tell everybody the idea that your financial future, like the city of Rome, was not built in a day. It takes time. So you have to plan and you have to build time into the equation. And you can achieve all those goals if you have time. But the closer you get to the defining moment of, say, retirement, it's really tough to make up ground fast. So that's why when clients start meeting with me, we're focusing on the end, not the beginning. The end is the goal to get to retired. What steps we got to take now to get them there?
Ideally, when should somebody sit down with somebody like you?
Well, I think it should start at the beginning, because if you think about this, financial habits are a learned behavior. And the sooner you learn it, the sooner you make good, valuable decisions in regards to your finances, the better that's going to pay off over your lifetime. I could go on for an hour and a half about clients I've seen that have made bad financial decisions that dog them for years. And an easy one is, I want this house, and the house is going to be $1 million, let's say, and they just can't afford it. But somewhere the bank said, hey, you're a young physician, you've got a great income potential ahead of you, we'll give you a loan on that $1 million house. Mm-hmm. And once they get in the door and the newness wears off and they're making payments every month, and then they said, gee, we want to take a little vacation, or there's other things we want, like furniture for the house and things like that, they're strapped, they're mortgage poor. Now, it's tough to be poor when you've got $1 million house, but their cash flow stinks. And they've got to make some decisions. Do I stay here? Do I go? And I think it's very important to start these habits at a young age and carry them into the future. Because let's face it, if you save a little bit of money over a long period of time, you're going to have an explosion of value. And that's the beauty of compound interest. So good financial behavior is learned over time. It's not a course they taught in high school. It's not a course they taught in college. It's not in medical school. You have to learn it over time. There's a lot of books out there, or there's people like myself that focus on these issues to get our clients really thinking about where they want to be in the future and what's it going to look like.
So we talked about the top five, and so this is the fifth one. So tell us what the last question that clients have been asking you, not just now, but over the many, many years you've been an advisor.
Well, this is an interesting. They ask me, do I have too much debt? And I say, okay, well, there's constructive debt. That would be using credit to buy a home, perhaps buying essential items like a car to get you to work, or appliances and things like that. Paying for an education. If there's debt involved there, it got you to where you are today. So that was a good investment. we say buying for economy. That's like buying in bulk or buying in the off season. If you want new ski equipment, when's the best time to buy it? Not at the beginning of the season. You want to buy that ski equipment in the summer when it's on sale. And lastly, we say perhaps using credit or buying to make money if you're going to invest in other real estate, if you're going to invest in a business or things like this. But there are times when we all want things we really can't afford at the moment. And if it's a luxury we don't need, we have to say no. The main purpose, or maybe the main purpose is valid, but the timing is not right. Let me say that again. Perhaps the purpose is valid, but the timing is wrong. Nevertheless, we let our impulses outweigh our common sense. While using credit, we try to make it all possible. And what many of our clients are finding out after the fact, that it was a mistake to think that credit increases your spending power, because actually it just does the opposite. The more you spend on credit costs, the less purchasing power that you really have. So, and think about that. There's carrying costs whenever you have too much debt, and we tell our clients, there's a few things that you've got to think about so that when you get to retire, or not to retirement, but before you retire, there's things we want you to look at. And here are the trouble signs. Okay, do you tend to be late in paying your bills? Do you take out a new loan to pay off an old one? Are you spending more than 20% of your take-home pay to pay off debt? This number 4 is very important. Do you have a cash reserve for emergencies? If you don't, you're using your credit card to solve a short-term problem.
That's right. Yeah.
And you're turning it into a long-term payment. That's wrong. And many people really don't know how much they owe. Okay. So, how do we know if they have too much debt? We ask them to do a net worth statement. We want a monthly cash flow analysis. We want a monthly budget, and we want to make a plan to reduce spending. Okay, and use your savings. If you have any savings, low interest savings should always pay off high interest debt. And today, low interest savings right now could be 1%, and the high interest debt could be 7%. In the past, it might have been 4% and 13%.
Sure.
But if you're getting 1% on your money and you're paying 7 or 8% on your loan, better to put that towards the loan.
Sure. Now, is there a formula for people to, if they were going to scratch some stuff out on paper, because debt is one side of the equation, but then savings is the other side of the question, right? So how do you balance that, and how do you break that down with your clients?
Great question. We tell our clients you can be a saver or a spender. And the spenders spend their whole income and save whatever's left at the end of the month. And where do you think that gets them? It gets them nowhere, because they spend it all and there's nothing left. So the savers save off the top, and they put money aside, and they essentially pay themselves first. They don't pay the mortgage company. They don't pay the utility company. They don't pay the car lease company first. They pay themselves first. And I want my clients to save between 10 and 15% of their income. Pay themselves first. Once they've done that, they've earned the right to spend whatever's left.
That's fair.
And I think that if clients saved more, there would be much less problems here in the world, because if you've got a cash reserve and you're saving appropriately and you're thinking and planning for the future, you can accomplish any financial goal you want to have. With some of my young clients, I tell them to let their lifestyle lag their income by 2 to 3 years. I'll say that again.
Yeah.
Let your lifestyle lag your income for 2 to 3 years. And the difference between those, as it grows, is money you're going to put into the savings or investing for retirement.
So I'm sorry. Say that one more time. Go ahead.
Let your lifestyle expenses lag your income by 2 to 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
And it's simple. People get a raise and they want to increase their standard of living. They want to go out to dinner more. They want to go on a cruise. They want to take a bigger vacation. They want a nicer car. They want a bigger mortgage. And it's like, hold on to that. Slow down. Let's allocate our resources in a way that can be productive for the future.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Partners, a registered investment advisor. Stratos Wealth Partners and Retirement Income Analysts, LLC, are separate entities from LPL Financial. Content in this material is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.